Something I should probably say right off the bat is that almost everything that I talk about on this channel is based in a lie. The very name that I use, Tim Ruth, is an anagram for I'm truth, and yet that in itself is a lie. There's a kind of chant or mantra or song that I sing quite regularly as part of a water ritual, and it goes, "Thank you for this life in which we live." And it's occurred to me on a few occasions as I'm singing it that it sounds a little bit like, and sometimes if I don't pronounce the F correctly, it sounds like, "Thank you for this lie in which we live." Now, it's interesting because the Gnostics were a branch of Christianity, although they're not really associated with the Christianity that most people are familiar with. They had a view of this world as being an eternal prison. Well, not an eternal prison, but a prison. And that the way out, the way through, the way to escape was through the spirit. And that unless one connects with the spirit, one will never escape this prison. And there are things that I like and dislike about the Gnostic worldview, but I suspect that Gnostics would probably agree with the idea that this life and almost anything that we can say about it in this 3D, mundane, planet Earth reality is a lie. And I suppose I've come to think of that as it's interesting. Yesterday I was talking to a young guy, a Christian bloke, who, when he's heard of the things that I'm interested in, he really wants to talk to me about God. Although he, by his own admission, has never had a direct experience of God, and everything that he tells me about God and what God wants and what God does and what God believes and thinks and is all second-hand through the Bible. And yet he openly accepts that because it's had such a transformational effect upon his life. Clearly accepting those beliefs and those ideas has helped him to transform the way in which he lives, and so he doesn't even think about questioning those things that he doesn't question. I suspect there's some sneaking suspicion lying there within him somewhere. And as we were talking, I was explaining that for me the word God is a word I generally lean away from. I'm not afraid of saying it in my own mind and to myself. To me, God is just a word that describes things which are inexplicable. So when people try to talk about the infinite, I would describe that as, I'm happy to describe that as God. If someone is reaching for a word like the divine or the universe or the all that is, to me they could all be substituted with the word God. I don't have any great hang-ups about using it, but I generally swerve it because it's so off-putting to so many people. It has so many negative associations. One of the favourite alternatives is goo. That goo is the ultimate essence which we have grown out of. Everything can be reduced to a goo of varying viscosity: solid goo, liquid glue, gaseous glue, goo, or goo, out of which we have emerged as an expression of this life force which is also goo. But if whether it's goo or God or the universe or the divine or the eternal or the ultimate mystery, that's probably where I feel most at home, is realizing that there's something about existence which can never be defined, can never be put into words. It doesn't matter how many thousands of pages we use to try and explain something, even the smallest thing. I could pick up a stone off this beach and try to describe it perfectly, and even with millions and millions of words, even millions of books, I would never be able to describe the experience of it perfectly. Words are simply signposts pointing to something. They point in the direction of something, but they are not the thing. The map is not the territory. And so there will never, ever be enough words in a materialistic, definable, scientific way to explain what reality is. It will never happen. It doesn't matter how many subatomic particles are discovered, or cosmic forces, or, there's just no way there will ever be a satisfaction for that kind of way of thinking where reality is finally put down into words. Okay, this is the equation, this is the sentence that sums up all of reality. Because the undefinable, the indefinable, the mystery is embedded into our experience of reality. Our words, our thoughts, our symbols, our signs will never encapsulate the full glory, the unending mystery and beauty of what it is to be alive, to exist. Learning to live in accordance with the unanswerable mystery in which we are immersed seems to me the only possible route to sanity. Now, I don't really like using the word sanity, because sanity is something which is culturally defined. If you're living within the culture's way of doing things, you're considered sane. When you become a burden to others, or troubling or irritating, and your value system is outside of the culturally accepted norms, then you are insane. Now, people have often said it's better to be maladjusted to a sick society than to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So I've come to accept my own insanity and to value it, because the cult of normality as it stands is not something that I feel very inclined to identify with. I don't want to be part of the cult of normality. The insanity of this world seems so self-evident to my eyes that I would like to distance myself from it at this point of time. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't crave to be normal in some way or other. I want to be accepted. I want to be viewed as someone that people want to relate to. I want to feel trustworthy and included and part of a community. I don't want to be so insane that I'm just completely out on the edges and nobody can relate to me. I mean, that form of insanity is real. There are those people who have pushed the boundaries of their own ways of thinking so far, so far, that they no longer relate to others in a way that other people value. It's interesting because there have been moments in my life where friendships have fallen away in sometimes quite torturous ways. I was really trying to hold on and sustain those friendships. I didn't, I'm someone who believes a lot in, I don't know, I'm quite a romantic, friendship and loyalty and longevity of connections, and would crave to really have enduring, long-lasting relationships. And yet, despite my best attempts to keep certain friendships alive, they've fallen away. People have pushed me away. And the funny thing is that now I look back and realise that, my life is so much better without those people. Like, they tended to be very angry, jealous, controlling, frustrated, anxious. People that had a negative effect on my life, on balance. And so despite trying to maintain those relationships and stay included, actually it did me a great service that they broke those relationships off. And I kind of mention that because now I look back, I associate those people with the cult of normality, with a way of thinking that's so far embedded into the dying age that is falling away on this planet at the moment. Or it seems to me that way, that there's like a certain way of thinking that is wrestling itself to the death, and is finding expression through all of the war and hatred and frustration and exploitation and general insanity. So for me, the cult of normality is something that I'm happy to distance myself from, and I can embrace my own insanity in terms of the cult of normality, and yet still have those human desires to be connected and to feel part of a tribe and to feel like I'm not alone. Now, solitude is not something that I'm afraid of. I value it. For the first time in nearly 30 years, I'm living on my own, and I'm absolutely loving it. The clarity of thought and purpose, the order and the cleanliness of my home, the ability to follow my own rhythms and patterns. I've been asking myself if I'll ever be able to live with other people again. I've spent so long in family settings where everybody's needs are being met together, or trying to meet everybody's needs together, and I absolutely love waking up in the morning and seeing other people, and cuddles and hugs, and there's so many beautiful things to appreciate, sharing meals together. I absolutely love all of that. And yet I'm wondering now if I'm on my way to being a cantankerous old git that doesn't want to share his space with anyone, because I could easily get used to my own company. So I appreciate solitude, but I also am really aware of the fact that this idea of self is an absolute illusion, the individual self. When I sleep, my mind merges again with the collective unconscious. There's no way to divorce myself from the essence of humanity. When I stand in the presence of other people, our brains harmonize without us even realizing it. We have these mirror neurons reflecting each other's thoughts and feelings. I am an interconnected being. There's no avoiding it. The idea of just being an individual is absolute insanity too. That's part of the cult of normality, this relentless pursuit of individual satisfaction. And so even though I can enjoy this moment of solitude in my life, I know that is not going to serve me indefinitely. I'm a part of this world. I need other people. I can't meet all of my needs alone. None of us can. You know, even those Tibetan monks that have retreated into caves for decades are served by people who take them food occasionally. And the hermit, the mystic hermit, which is an archetype, I guess, in a way, but cannot live alone. We have to live in partnership with each other and with the animal kingdom, with the plant kingdom, with this earth, with the sky, with the elements. We are interconnected beings. It's an absolute illusion to think of ourselves as being able to meet all our own needs and satisfy ourselves. It's absurd. It can be nice for a time, but we need each other. We need other people. So it's funny because for much of my life I've used this name, Iam, which can also be read I am. But it's not all about the big I am. I'm a little Iam, a little droplet of God, if you will. As the waves of samsara crash upon the shore, spray leaps out of those waves and just for a moment exists as a tiny droplet, still part of the ocean, but for a moment seeming like a separate entity before it crashes on the shore and merges back into the ocean. That little droplet is how I perceive myself. Just this fleeting expression of separation before it ultimately merges back into that one great ocean. I don't know why I used that term samsara then. It's just because there's this beautiful poem that I absolutely love that you can find online, Natural Great Peace, which was, I believe, written by Sogyal Rinpoche, who apparently is not the greatest of guys. But don't let it spoil the amazing piece of music and the incredible poem. How does it go? Rest in natural great peace. This, is it eternal mind? No. Rest in natural great peace. This restless mind, beaten helplessly by the pounding waves in the infinite ocean of samsara. Rest in natural great peace. I don't even really know what samsara means. I think it might be something to do with the world of illusion. Now that's Maya. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. The words are just pointing in a certain direction and I get the essence of that poem, what it's trying to say. And my goodness, I've felt the pounding of those pounding waves in recent years. I've passed through the dark night of the soul and it's wonderful to find myself sitting here in the calm in front of this beautiful, beautiful setting. Not in front of, immersed in. The sun is rising. It's nearly solstice. I've been up since before sunrise. It's just so beautiful, this world. So, so beautiful. Even with all its trials and tribulations, its challenges, it still has its triumphs. This incredible mystery of what it is to be alive. Even in pain, I can feel gratitude. One of my favourite meditations is you're not the body, you're not the mind. You're not the body, you're not the mind. I can't help but smile when I remember that, when it comes to mind. It really puts a smile on my face, because it reminds me that this adventure that I'm calling this lifetime is fleeting. I'm gonna die, and whilst I'm here alive, well, what have I got to lose? We're just here for a fleeting moment. What have we got to lose? We're gonna die. But we're not this body, and we're not this mind. I am not this body, and I am not this mind. You know, I was always an atheist. I was brought up by a grandfather who was an ardent atheist and found it very important not to believe in anything that we cannot see or prove or find self-evident. And it's interesting because when I was 18, I had this out-of-body experience that completely devastated my materialistic, atheistic, scientific worldview, because I had an experience that was inexplicable. My spirit left my body, my mind, I don't know how best to describe it, and I was able to experience a completely parallel reality whilst my body was somewhere else, and to dance between those different realities until finally, eventually resting again into this body. And what that proved to me was that whatever I am, whatever is, was not just this body and not just this mind. That there's something inexplicable, some infinite mystery that witnesses what goes on in this body and in this mind. And sometimes in special moments of connection or meditation, or there's these moments of clarity, of total immersion in the experience of this mystery. A total dissolving of all boundaries, where one just is. And that's what I'm going to merge into now. I can hear the traffic beginning up on the road. But I don't think I've got anything else to add. But if you want to enjoy this moment of quiet with me, I'll leave this recorder running, and you can enjoy the sound of the sea with me. Maybe we can merge into the one together.